There are moments in life when everything feels like it is collapsing at the same time, when your heart is exhausted not from physical work but from emotional weight, when your mind is tired from overthinking, when you have smiled in front of people but cried alone at night, when you have prayed and felt silence, believed and felt delay, trusted and felt betrayed, and somewhere deep inside you have asked the question, God, are you still there? And in those exact moments, the story of Jesus Christ becomes more than a religious story, it becomes a lifeline, because his life was never about comfort, applause, or ease. It was about purpose through pressure, victory through suffering, and glory through sacrifice. And if you truly look at his journey, you will begin to understand that your struggle does not mean you are abandoned, your delay does not mean you are denied. And your pain does not mean your story is over, because Jesus was not born into luxury but into humility, not in a palace surrounded by servants but in a stable surrounded by animals, showing us that God is not intimidated by small beginnings and that greatness often starts in hidden places. And perhaps right now you feel hidden, unnoticed, overlooked, like your life does not look impressive enough to matter, but the greatest impact in human history began in a manger, which means your environment does not determine your destiny. And your current situation does not cancel your future calling, because before Jesus ever performed a miracle, before crowds followed him, before the world knew his name, he spent 30 quiet years living an ordinary life. And that alone teaches us that preparation seasons are not punishment seasons, that silence is not absence, and that growth often happens in the unseen, because roots grow underground before fruit appears above ground. And maybe you are in a season where nothing seems to be happening, where you feel stuck, where progress feels slow, where you are tempted to compare your timeline with everyone else's highlight reel. But remember that even the Son of God waited. Even he prepared, even he grew in silence before stepping into public purpose, and if he did not rush the process, neither should you, because when the time was right, he stepped into his calling and immediately faced resistance, temptation, and attack, because before he started his ministry, he went into the wilderness for 40 days, fasting, alone, hungry, and tempted, and the enemy did not attack his hunger first, he attacked his identity, saying, "If you are the Son of God," and that is the same strategy used against you today, because when life gets hard, the attack is not just on your situation, it is on your identity, making you question who you are, making you doubt your worth, making you forget that you are chosen, loved, and called. But Jesus responded not with emotion but with truth, standing firm in what he knew about himself, and that is the key for you as well. Because when you know who you are in God, no lie can shake you, no opinion can define you, no failure can erase you, and no setback can stop you. And yet even after overcoming temptation, even after healing the sick, feeding the hungry, loving the rejected, and performing miracles, Jesus was still criticized, misunderstood, doubted, and eventually rejected, and that is a powerful reminder that doing good does not guarantee applause, that loving people does not always result in loyalty, and that walking in purpose does not mean walking without opposition, because even perfection was crucified. So stop trying to win everyone's approval and start focusing on fulfilling your assignment. Because people may misunderstand your heart, they may question your motives, they may leave when things get difficult, but the departure does not cancel your destiny. And consider the night when one of his closest disciples, Judas, betrayed him with a kiss, because sometimes the deepest wounds come from those who once walked beside you, and you may have experienced that kind of pain, the pain of betrayal, the shock of disappointment. The ache of realizing that someone you trusted chose their own agenda over your loyalty. But even in that moment Jesus did not panic, he did not lose control, he did not abandon his mission, because he understood that betrayal was part of the process leading to a greater purpose. And what hurt him was also positioning him for resurrection, and that is a truth you must hold onto, because what hurt you may be positioning you for elevation, what broke you may be building you, and what felt like rejection may actually be redirection. Because the cross looked like defeat, but it was actually divine design, and when Jesus was beaten, mocked, crowned with thorns, forced to carry his cross, nailed to wood, and lifted before a crowd that once shouted, "Hosanna," but now shouted, "Crucify him." He experienced physical pain, emotional humiliation, and spiritual weight beyond human understanding, and yet in his darkest hour he spoke words of forgiveness, saying, "Father, forgive them," proving that true power is not revenge but mercy. Not retaliation but love, and that kind of love is transformational, because he did not stay on the cross because he lacked power to come down, he stayed because of love, love that saw your worst day and still chose sacrifice. Love that knew your future failures and still extended grace, love that understood your weaknesses and still declared you worth dying for, and after he gave his last breath, the world grew silent, hope seemed buried. Dreams appeared shattered, and fear filled the hearts of those who followed him, because from a human perspective it looked like the end, and maybe you are in a season that feels like that, where something you prayed for has died. Where a relationship ended, where a job was lost, where a door closed, where a dream seems buried under disappointment, and you are standing in the silence wondering if there is anything left, but remember this, Friday is painful. Saturday is silent, but Sunday is coming, because 3 days later the stone was rolled away, the grave was empty, and death was defeated, and what looked like the end became the greatest comeback in history. Proving that God specializes in resurrection, in turning graves into gardens, in turning pain into purpose, in turning mourning into dancing, and that same resurrection power is available to you today. Which means your story is not finished, your failure is not final, your depression is not permanent, your addiction is not stronger than grace, your anxiety is not greater than peace, and your setback is not the conclusion of your journey. Because if Jesus could conquer death, he can conquer your situation. If he could walk out of a sealed tomb, you can walk out of what tried to bury you, and maybe you feel unworthy, maybe you think you have made too many mistakes. Gone too far, failed too often, but remember Peter denied him 3 times and was restored. Remember Paul persecuted believers and became a powerful apostle. Remember that grace is not given to the perfect but to the willing. And your past does not cancel your calling, because God does not consult your history before deciding your future, and when storms rise in your life, when waves crash against your peace, when fear whispers that you will sink. Remember the disciples in the boat, panicking while Jesus slept, because silence does not mean absence, and when he spoke, the storm obeyed, and if he is in your boat, you will not drown, you may be shaken but you will not be destroyed. Because your foundation is stronger than the wind, and through it all the central message remains love, relentless, unconditional, sacrificial love, love that forgives, love that restores, love that rebuilds broken hearts. And when you choose love instead of bitterness, forgiveness instead of resentment, faith instead of fear, you reflect the heart of Christ, and perhaps right now you need to stand again, pray again, believe again. Try again, because falling does not make you finished, it makes you human, and getting up makes you courageous, and as long as you are breathing, God is working, as long as your heart beats, purpose remains. As long as there is a tomorrow, hope lives, Because the same Jesus who healed the blind, calmed the storm, raised the dead, forgave the sinner, and conquered the grave is with you in your room, in your struggle, in your waiting, and when everything around you says it is over, heaven says it is just beginning, because resurrection always follows crucifixion, victory always follows endurance, breakthrough always follows pressure, and glory always follows suffering. So do not give up in your Friday season, do not quit in your silent Saturday, because Sunday is closer than you think. Your tears are seen, your prayers are heard, your pain is counted, your faith is growing, and your comeback is being prepared, and one day you will look back at this season and realize that what felt like the end was actually the turning point, what felt like burial was actually planting, what felt like loss was actually preparation, and you will rise stronger, wiser, deeper, and more powerful than before, because He rose first, and because He lives, you have hope, because He overcame, you can overcome, because He conquered death, nothing in this world can permanently defeat you. So lift your head, steady your heart, strengthen your faith, and remember this unshakable truth: when the stone rolls away, your comeback begins, and with Jesus Christ by your side, the best chapters of your story are still ahead.